Cheers.
Do a date night. We haven't done an episode that's just me and you in a little while. So I'm excited.
Yeah, this is going to be good.
I'm actually more excited because of the topic. I proposed this topic kind of in jest earlier in the week, and I didn't know that you were going to go for it, and you've gone for it. And so now I'm really excited. And I'm a little worried that this is going to turn into a monologue because I'm so excited I have so many things to say. I wrote notes. I took notes down. Hi, everybody.
Booktok, everyone. Booktok.
Welcome to another episode of Midwest Married. I'm Amy.
And I'm Matt.
And we're going to talk about my latest obsession, compulsion. I don't know. We're going to decide that a little bit later on in the episode, I think.
Yeah. And I thought this would be a good episode being, it's election week. And it's a little
heavy.
bit, lighthearted. Books. How serious can it be?
I mean, we can have some serious discussions about books. I can get serious if you'd like.
Okay. Well, let's do it. Booktok.
Let's do it.
I have far too many stories, but we're just gonna roll with it. All right.
Okay. I have no idea what these stories are yet, but in thinking about this topic, I do have to share. I have to tell everybody just how nerdy I am. They already know, right? We're 6 months in. Everybody knows. I like a good scientific journal. I like, all the evidence. I like all that good nerdy stuff. They don't know when I became such a nerd, and it began in my childhood. And I was just thinking that I have to share this one story as I was thinking about our podcast that came to mind.
It's about your punishment?
Probably. You're probably thinking of the same story because I'm pretty sure that you've heard of it or know about it. Yep. This is the first time that I can recollect that I ever got in trouble at school. Okay, so when I was in middle school, I was kind of the typical middle child where I was always seeking attention, and my oldest brother and sister were always doing so good in school. So that's where I was like, I'm going to do even better in school so that I can outshine them. And I did. However, the first time I remember getting in trouble was in 6th grade math class. I had Mrs. Lovejoy. She was not such a Lovejoy, in my opinion, in my recollection. I'm sure that she was a fantastic teacher and a fine person looking back, but math wasn't particularly my favorite subject. And so her form of punishment for no matter what anybody was doing was to write lines, to stay after class and to write lines. I will not do whatever it was that I was doing.
Like The Simpsons.
Oh, sure. Maybe. Did they write lines on The Simpsons?
In the opening credits, Bart is writing lines on chalkboards often.
Oh, I didn't watch The Simpsons.
Anyways, go on.
It wasn't really allowed in my house. Anyways, so I was reading a lot. I was really tight with my middle school librarian. I had all sorts of good books lined up, and I was known to be the one walking down the hall reading a book in between classes. That was me. That's who you married. And in math class, there was a particularly slow, boring moment in time. I don't know what it was we were talking about, but I decided to pick up my book under my desk and to read very slyly underneath my desk because it must have been a very good part of this book. And Mrs. Lovejoy caught me. She sent me out into the hall. I was so mortified at being in trouble, kicked out of class in trouble, that I just preemptively was like, well, what's going to be the consequence? I know what it's going to be. I took out my notebook and I started writing, I will not read in class. I will not read in class. I will not read in class 100 times until she came out and talked to me. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I'll never read in class again, Mrs. Lovejoy. I just thought that was funny.
I didn't know that story.
Oh, you did not know that story?
Mm-mm.
Ah, well, hey, there's a new story after 5 million years.
I thought it was that when you were grounded, you would get grounded for reading too much.
Yes, I forgot about that too. Yeah, so my parents, whenever I was in trouble for not doing what I was supposed to do. Well, first off, my mom would have a rule that if someone were reading, then she would not interrupt them reading to like clean their room or whatever. But it backfired on them because here comes me who would just not put the book down. And so if they wanted to really punish me, they would take away my books and say, you're not allowed to read. So, hi, everybody.
But that's
I'm Amy.
That's the first time you remember getting in trouble?
Yeah, that was my very first time ever getting in trouble in school. I didn't get in trouble that often.
We are not the same.
Tell me about your first recollection of reading or, you know.
My first recollection of reading?
Well, I don't know.
I mean,
tell me your first story that this topic relates to.
Reading? When I was younger, my grandpa Art would read me stories before bed. I remember going to climb in his recliner chair and he would read me stories. He'd say one book, I'd bring 5, as any 4 to 5-year-old would do. I did that. First time I ever got in trouble with a book. Me and my friend stole Playboys in 2nd grade.
So different kind, a little switch there. I was like, oh, that's so wholesome and so normal as far as like a first book memory.
We were in 2nd grade and we were in the junkyard and there was a stack of vintage Playboys and we took them.
Yeah, that's less wholesome.
And then we took them to school and we traded them and we got caught on the bus.
That you were in trouble
Literature. It's for the stories.
I mean, I'm sure that they did have some very nice stories in those magazines. You were young.
8.
Dang. I suppose. Well.
Yeah. So that's my first memory. Right. Hi, everybody. I'm Matt.
We often joke that had we gone to the same high school, we for sure would not have gotten together.
No.
But here we are now.
Here we are.
Cheers.
Ding.
On to the first story?
Yep.
All right.
And then we can get into all my thoughts on your book problem.
Oh, sure.
Am I the asshole for calling out my sister-in-law for buying and returning books just to make Booktoks? My sister started posting Booktok videos in October of last year. If you're not familiar, this is a part of TikTok where people post about books and people post reviews, lists, recommendations, book hauls, etc. She's always been a big reader, so I wanted to support her in this. Her videos aren't super popular. She's perpetually stuck in the 200 view jail, as they call it. Been there. She decided that in order for her to get more views and engagement, she would need to do the thing that gets people a lot of views and posts. Book hauls, which is just, here's a bunch of books I bought. I do not get it, but whatever. Well, what she actually decided to do was go buy a ton of books and then return them, and she keeps doing it. I was shocked when she told me, and I asked her why'd she do that. She said it's just so she could get the views. I asked why she didn't just take the videos in the store, and she said there was no way to make it aesthetic in the store. I told her this was sketchy behavior, and when she said it was from our local bookstore and not the big box one, I said that makes it 10 times worse. She told me I was being a shitty, unsupportive sister and that she is trying her hardest to come up with the ideas and break into Booktok. That it's hard because there are already people with 10,000 followers and she will never get there. I told her that she should spend her time researching and working on her content. Maybe she can come up with ideas that aren't so sketchy. She pissed me off and made a video talking about her unsupportive family. It got 200 views, so it didn't exactly work out for her. Was it wrong for me to call her out for how she gets the books and returns them?
Well, this is so silly, I think. So, okay, Booktok. I'm a big fan of Booktok. That's probably most of my TikTok when I'm, perusing, scrolling. There's a lot of fan art out there. Like after you read the books, that's just incredible and amazing. Anyway, if you haven't looked, look up fan art for your favorite book, especially like the more popular ones nowadays. it's you won't be disappointed. Thank me later. So, but Booktok generally is, book hauls, but usually they have to talk about the book and what their reaction to the book. Maybe her sister, she didn't say this. I assume that her sister has read the books that she's buying, but maybe on her Kindle. That's how I prefer to read because it holds your spot, doesn't give you carpal tunnel. It's, your Kindle Paperwhite and is great for by the beach or I'm not doing an advertisement for them, but anyway, it's really great. And if you don't have a lot of space in your house to hold all the actual books in your bookcase, like in our case where we just don't have that space, then having them on your ebook solves a lot of those problems. Well, when you're doing a little Booktok presentation and holding up the books of, hey, this book, you want to be able to show the people what the book actually is. Mm-hmm. And so I don't really feel like there is a victim in this because, okay, she buys the books and she returns them. I am assuming in the same condition that she bought them. So I don't know. She probably has already bought them once on her Kindle. I don't really think it's a big deal. She's trying to be creative and create some content. I think that the sister is being a little hard on her. Does the sister maybe have some good points as far as maybe you should work a little bit more on your content? Perhaps. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's a big deal.
No, I agree. I think it is silly. Primarily because who gives a rip? If she wasn't going to buy them in the first place, or she did then go and buy them and then return them, the bookstore isn't out anything other than maybe having to put the books away based on how they categorize them. The Dewey Decimal System, I don't know. I'm sure that's not a thing anymore.
Well, they've got to have an organizational system of some sort. So right. Yes, they have to put them back, I suppose. I didn't think about
section, that. And they're all probably going to the same section because typically Booktok is romance, right?
I don't think so.
Fantasy romance.
It can be.
It can be, right? It sounds like in this case, probably is, maybe.
I'm not sure. That's what my Booktok is. Romantasy.
It's weird. My Booktok is the same. So,
well,
and I would agree. The Booktok people that I have followed have made the content interesting, and they have given me reason to screenshot them to then send to you, like 3 red hot peppers next to the book or underneath it. Bing, bing, bing. Hot spice.
You send me those.
Or a green pepper. And then you're like, nah, that's not really great. So
I do get my book ideas sometimes off of Booktok, though, because if you go through Booktok and you find the reoccurring titles that everybody's raving about, well, then I want to go and read it. And especially if it's on Kindle Unlimited, sign me up. Got to get my money's worth out of my subscription every month.
Yeah, and I've been on Booktok now far too long because I think I did actually get a legitimate book series that was not that would probably be geared towards me. So I gotta get off there for a while.
Fabulous.
No, I'm only on there for you, which then benefits me. If you know, you know. Right? So why don't we go to the people? Let's see what they say.
What do they think? Are we terrible and have no conscience and we're morally gray like the characters in my books? Just read the comments.
My moral compass does tend to point.
Mine is usually pretty good, but I don't know. Sometimes it deviates.
Northwest, southwest.
Keep going. What do the people say?
OP should make a drama talk about her sleazy sister. Bet she gets more than 200 views on that video. When the creators that read Reddit posts get to this one, it will end up in the sister's feed. Do it, OP. Fight fire with fire.
So,
is your sister aware of libraries? They don't have these kind of books in libraries. Everyone says that the sister buying the books is kind of sleazy and that OP is not the asshole. People are mad at this chick for going and buying all these books and then returning them.
So we are the morally gray anti-hero. thinking
and
that
it's absolutely ridiculous.
Fun. It's fine.
Fun fact, a lot of authors are actually quitting because of this exact behavior, buying and then immediately returning the books. It's costing them so much money as to make their entire career unsustainable. No, that makes no sense.
I mean, in that case, like if you buy it to read it and then return it, like I think that's kind of sleazy. But I mean, there's libraries. Just go to a library if you'd like to do that. I'm assuming that she's already read the book because she has to present her opinion on Booktok of the book.
I don't think so. I think the sister is making bad content, and she's saying, A Court of Roses, oh my gosh, you guys, like the spice in this book is...
And she hasn't read it?
And hasn't read it.
Well, then that's her problem if that's it.
Correct. That's why she sucks at TikTok or social media. But who cares if she's returning the books then if they're coming back in good enough condition? If she, like, it's pointless. Maybe she ends up keeping 1 or 2 of those books and returns the other 15. Who cares? She still ended up with 2 at the end of the day. But this person's saying that the authors, when you return a book, take a hit.
Well, it's just that then they're not selling them, perhaps.
So,
well, I do have more beef, though, if she's not reading the books and she's posting book talks. I do have beef with that.
Yeah, because
that's where my moral compass lies. You cannot lie to me on Booktok and say you've read a book and not have read that book. That is blasphemous.
Well, and at the end of the day, you're going to lose followers that way, right? If you're telling people, oh, this is a really great book, and it's not. Eventually, you'll get found out.
Okay.
But moving on. Let's talk about your book habits.
Sure.
How long does it take you to read an average book of, I don't know, 500-ish pages?
This doesn't have 500 pages. It's only 400. Really the question you should be asking is less about that. Perhaps more about like, yeah, Amy, you read so much as a youth. I didn't read for quite a few years. So I'm playing catch up. Like
It's
all
true.
the years that I went to college when we were studying, and like I just felt like there was no room in my brain for like reading for fun, and so that didn't happen. So I didn't pick up reading probably for the past few years.
Okay.
And I kind of go through stints. And so sometimes when I get a book that is really intriguing to me, like this one, if you know, you know.
A Court of Thorn and Roses.
ACOTAR. Then it might just take me like a week.
She's a liar. We'll get to that lie after this next story.
Okay.
But you have to realize we have a lot of things going on. House building, kids, school, soccer. Now we're on to hockey, which is like every day of the week. Finishing a book in a day or two or less.
A few days. At least a few.
Am I the asshole for putting my foot down and asking my wife to read in chunks?
Maybe.
My wife is a very avid reader. She tends to pick up on these thick-ass books like Crime and Punishment and Les Miserables. That's definitely...
Les Miserables. Man.
She's got it.
Come on.
And she fixates on them to the point where she only takes breaks to eat or use the restroom. Normally, this isn't really a problem because I'll just watch TV with the kids. And she really only does this on the weekends where there really isn't much to do. In fact, she's considerate enough to meal prep and clean the house before she starts to read. The issue is that social events inevitably go to the wayside. I'm in a job that requires a lot of networking, and my image really depends on this, the image of my family as well. So I'm constantly struggling with this. She ends up coming, but then downloading the book on her phone like a 13-year-old. Everyone looked at her so weird when we went to a gala a few days ago. She wouldn't socialize and make conversation. And this was a black tie event, mind you. I'm pretty sure my coworkers were laughing at me because all the other wives were socializing and she was just sitting off in a corner at a high top table reading. When we got home, I told her that her habit of putting aside everything to fixate on this hobby was not sustainable. I explained that as my wife, she has a responsibility beyond simply finishing her chores ahead of time, and that I can't keep going to social events either alone or with a disengaged wife. I even paid for babysitters, so I told her she needed to grow up and read like normal people do in blocks of time. But she got really offended and said that I don't have the right to tell her what to do with her weekends, which I think is ridiculous because I'm her husband and I shouldn't have to beg for some kind of attention from my own wife.
Oofty, some of the language in that post. He's not like winning points with me. I understand where his wife is coming from because there are absolute books that I just cannot put down. Am I so bad that we go to a social event and I am reading during the social event? I don't think so.
No.
But do I think she wins gold stars for completing all the chores and meal prepping because she knows that she's going to want to snuggle up on the couch with a book and devour an entire series of whatever romantasy she's reading? You know, I get that a little bit. I think that she's a little bit of a hero in that regard. I certainly don't meal prep when I've decided that, like, okay, we've got nothing going on.
When Amy decides that she is going to read a book, or in the case of A Court of Thrones and Roses, and enter the Sarah J. Maas universe, it's like 5 books, coming out to be 6 books here in 83 days or something like that. The new one drops. And then there's like
was Fourth Wing.
There's like a whole universe.
There is the Sarah J. Maas
and Amy just
universe.
Sits all day long.
Sometimes a girl needs a break. You know what? I work really hard and I do a lot of things.
I agree.
And I make sure that my responsibilities are generally done. And I feel like for me, this is my recharging, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we go out, we do a social event. We talked in a different episode where you're an extrovert, I'm an introvert. I enjoy those things that we do with our friends, but it takes a lot of energy from me. And so how I get my energy back and feel rejuvenated is by sitting down and reading a book.
I agree. I don't think I get angry with you. Will say there have been times where I get annoyed.
Yeah,
where,
that's fair.
Like the kids want something and I'm working on editing, or there's something else going on that I'm engaged in. I'm like, Amy, put your book down and go and get the kid a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, please.
And I will do it.
For example, not that that's been.
Yes. Or I will feel like perhaps you could also get the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And sometimes mama needs a little bit of a break. So yes, is it the healthiest of behaviors on my part? I mean, maybe not. I do, like when I really get into it, there's a lot of hours. I try to accomplish what I need to accomplish first. In this case, in this story, she tries to accomplish what she needs to accomplish. There may be other reasons why she is not engaging in his social networking events. Maybe she doesn't get along with the other wives, or maybe she's never felt engaged. Maybe she's standing there at this art gallery and looking at these pictures being like, oh, wow, this is a waste of my time. It would just be, I'm here. Maybe it would just, I would just much rather be like reading my book. Nobody's talking to me anyway. So maybe I dive back in. Is it a really great thing?
Not,
no.
From somebody who lives in the business world, I would say that's not a great look.
Yeah.
And my guess is that his coworkers, I wouldn't say they weren't and if I had to guess, they weren't making fun of him. It was more or less like, oh, does she not like us? Is she not having a great time? Like, it's really weird to be at a black tie event and off reading a book. It seems off. Like,
but also sometimes people just have their their little nuances.
Intricacies.
Yes, I couldn't say that word.
Finally, a word that I knew.
Woo! You got it. But maybe, people are allowed to be a little bit quirky. Maybe that's a little bit of her quirk. And the reason that I'm probably defending her so much is because I hated his response in his post. He did start to lose me in the way he was coming across. Like, I'm her husband and kind of like she should listen to me type. I have the right to dictate her weekends.
Yeah. And that's not
Excuse
great. From
me,
what it sounds
sir.
like, she also works throughout the week and
takes care of the kids.
Cooks the meals, meal preps, does the whole deal. And at the end of the day, they are her weekends. And
right.
I want to know how frequent these events are. I'm trying to look for an update, but.
So I would have been more swayed had he come from the angle of, I really was looking forward to this, to spend time with my wife, treat it as a date night. I know it's for work, but, I felt disconnected from her. I wanted to be more connected. I really wanted her to meet my coworkers' wives and maybe become, friendly so we could perhaps do some things in the future. And so I brought it to her and I was like, hey, really, this is my work. It's really important to me. I'd really love that if we could be on the same page with these events. And, some people made some comments about you reading. I know you love your reading. I'm cool with that. But in the future, at these events, could we perhaps not do that? Could you be more present?
That's our thing.
Yeah.
Where if we're in the car and I'm driving and Amy's on her phone, or, I'm on the phone, vice versa, it's, hey, be present. Talk to me. Be here. So maybe they have that conversation of like, hey, Amy, hey, gotta be present now. Be present. Come with me. I need you now. Yeah. So had he come from it at that angle, I would have been more forgiving. But I think that she needs to enjoy her books. What did the people say? Am I on the wrong side of history again? Nope. You're on the right side. Okay. Everyone, for the most part, says that he is the asshole. She meal preps, she makes sure her family is taken care of, and then she gets lost in the books on the weekends. And you somehow think that you have the power to put your foot down and tell her that she can only read when you have decided that it's okay. Bro, fuck all the way off. And while you're doing it, know that you are in fact a huge, gaping, prolapsed a-hole. That's funny. I mean... That's so bad. Okay. That was the most upvoted comment, but other people did mention, seems like the only time that he has a real issue with it is at the black tie events, which seems strange, but other than that, no big deal. Getting lost in a good book is easy, but when I read obsessively like that, it's because my mental health is usually spiraling and I'm looking for an escape of some sort. So there is such a thing as escapism. Now that you bring that up. Oh, okay. Okay. Where you feel like the fantasy world is better than your own? I think it's more of you're looking for something. It doesn't necessarily need to be books, but you're looking for something in order to escape your current realm or situation. Video games. So video games. See, you get it there. A lot of people do it through video games. You could do it through movies, any kind of entertainment. Books. I think it's a really easy way to do that where, you just want to check out from the life stressors that you have for a moment in time, go to somewhere else. Reading is a really easy way to do that. And so escapism,
That was one of my notes. I made notes for this podcast, you guys, because I was so excited about this one. I hope you guys like it because I'm nerdy like that. So escapism, the act of reading a book to temporarily distract yourself from your daily life and stressors. There are benefits. Reading can be a healthy way to cope with difficult emotions and mental states. It can provide a break from overthinking and help you gain clarity. Reading can also be a powerful experience because you're able to use your imagination to create the visuals in your head. Escapist fiction can explore deeper aspects of the human experience and purpose. It can also confront contemporary issues through a moral journey that the reader can learn from. This is actually very interesting too. I don't know where this came from, but I remember reading something about how this can be through reading stories can be a way to safely experience like your past traumas, to work through them. So in a way can be kind of healing. And like if you're not ready to mentally go there yourself for your own past experiences, but perhaps you're reading a book with maybe similar experiences, then that's a safe way to kind of navigate that and work through it. Mm-hmm. So also can be very positive in that way. But then they talk about balance. It's important to use escapism in moderation and not rely on it as a way to avoid addressing your issues. When used in moderation, escapism can provide mental respite and help you return to your daily life with renewed energy. I always feel renewed, a little more vitalized, energetic after finishing a book, unless there's a huge cliffhanger and then I have to dive into the next book.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to jump to the next one.
Okay, go ahead.
But
like I said, I was worried that this is just going to turn into a monologue of me just sharing all my word vomit thoughts.
The last note on the last story was, honestly, his social demands sound exhausting to me. I'd probably be sneaking off too. But obsessively reading, we're going to get to that.
Okay.
In this story. But what are you escaping from?
That's a good question. I mean, I feel like we're under a lot of stress lately with the house building and just parenting our kids and working 40 hours a week and trying to keep a clean house. And the house is never actually clean, you guys. My house is never clean. I try really hard. And no, my kids do not clean up as much as they should. And I don't enforce them to clean up as much as they should, even though I probably should do that. The dishes aren't done and the laundry's never done. And I've got my mental list of 5 million things to do. I'm not a good cook. I should meal prep. I know that.
I should be doing all these things as well. I'm working on the new house often, every day.
I know.
Just for the record.
We are both in that very busy state. You're not hanging out on the couch playing your video games or whatever. We're doing this past weekend. We spent the entire weekend framing up walls, and I'm really proficient with a framing nailer now, doing OSB. Mm-hmm. Feel very good about that. Tyvek. Those are skills, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm learning. So, maybe just the surmounting feeling of responsibility. Maybe I just, would like to escape to an adventure every now and then where it's like creativity. I guess that's what it is. I miss being creative. If we're going to get real like down and into it, I don't feel like I have the time or energy to like have that creative process. And so maybe that's like a good outlet for that. I don't know, Mr. Therapist, psychiatrist, psychologist. I don't know. What am I escaping?
I'm not sure. That's why I'm asking you. There's so many items with books and reading and Booktok that I want to touch on. Mm-hmm. And I want to get to the erotica side eventually.
Oh.
But
okay.
You had brought this up, so I got to read it. OP writes, obsessively reading. Does anyone else feel like this almost obsessive desire to always be reading a book, and when you finish one, you get this weird happy and sad feeling, like you're happy about the cliche yet so lovable happy ending you usually find in a romance novel, but almost a withdrawal feeling of sadness, like, well, what do I read now? Or is that just me? I've been noticing more and more lately that every time I finish a book and my reading list shrinks, I feel this weird pit in my stomach, and it's a little weird. I read 11 books in 3 weeks, and that's only because I had a hiatus to focus on class. Before that, I was reading a book a day, and I'm not sure what's up with that. Would love to hear other people's feelings and experiences.
All right. I mean, yeah, I can understand that feeling of, I feel satisfied that I accomplished something. I finished that book, but I'm kind of sad because I got to know those characters so much, and now it's done. One thing I really love about the Sarah J. Maas universe is I think she's really good about finishing her books, but then giving you a little bit extra of that closure, even though each book, like she has series, right? You want to read the next one, but there's just so much more after the climax of the series to wrap things up. Like I just really, really like that about that. And I've read, so there's ACOTAR, and there's Crescent City, which is a 3-book series. And then there's Throne of Glass, which is an 8-book series. So I've read all of them. They're fabulous. If you haven't read them, do it. So good. So I get that.
Yeah, I would say one of the series, well, actually all 3 of the series that I have read in their entirety, most of the books were all already out. So the first series that I really read was Harry Potter. You could say that's probably the first book I ever read.
I got you into that, I think.
I'm not sure. Maybe. I think it was because of the movie.
No, I think I was like, you need to read this.
Okay. Either way, there was 4, maybe 5 books already out. So once I finished one, I could immediately go to the next one. Mm-hmm. Then there was the Twilight series. Mm-hmm. I read all those straight through. Mm-hmm. And then the Divergent series. I read all those books straight through. Mm-hmm. Oh, and I read...
the City of
Bones.
Oh, yeah.
I read the first 4 books in that series.
That was back in the day.
Couldn't get back into it after I had quit for a period of time. But I will say that's what I do with Netflix shows as well. Like I binge. I don't want to start one season and then wait a year to watch the next one, because then I have to go back and watch it again. It's a big waste of time. So that's what I'll say about the feeling of needing to go back.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing about this kind of thing is I've actually read a lot of her books twice, because you read it the first time and there's such twists and turns that happen that you know that there are little breadcrumbs that you missed reading the first time. So I enjoyed actually reading everything again. And also, I read it so fast the first time because I'm like, I need to know what happens. I just can't put it down. And then when I read it the second time, I can read it like a normal person, like in chunks, like nicely spaced out, and can, it doesn't rule my life so much. Right. But there is, okay, so speaking of that, this obsession, right? Again, in my research, there's a name for that. Bibliomania. Which is a person who is obsessed with books and will take extreme measures to obtain them. Maybe just read them? I don't know. Bibliomaniacs may have multiple copies of the same book in different conditions and editions. Okay, so maybe I don't have that. Maybe I don't have bibliomania. But there's also reading OCD, which is a type of OCD that causes people to reread words, phrases, sentences, paragraphs multiple times in order to understand the material. Maybe not that.
No.
Okay, what about compulsive reading? A book, film, play, or sports event that is so interesting or exciting that you do not want to stop reading or watching it. So maybe it's compulsive.
How about this?
Yeah.
Good try with the research,
Uh-huh.
but popular vote, and I did not read the people's comments,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm looking at 5 or 6 of them right now that go along the lines of this. No, absolutely couldn't relate to this more. I think I've always used different mediums of escapism, whether it be music, games, etc. This, my friend, is called escapism. And apparently, per my research, says that it's very common in people who were overachievers as kids and teens and have developed a fear of failure.
I did read that too somewhere.
Wow, I couldn't relate to this or anything else anymore. With the escapism and fear of failure, it feels so much safer in the book world where there is a guaranteed HEA.
Happy ending. Oh, HEA?
Happy ever after.
Happy ever after. Yeah.
Ha!
You got it.
Nailed
That
it.
kind of goes back to it's a safe way to experience things. I also think that we look for, or at least I do, I look for books where I can relate to the main character. And whether it is a main character that has traits that I would like to see more of in myself. And so, like, in especially these romantasy novels, people who are adventurous and fearless and resilient and strong, like that's the kind of character that I gravitate towards. And sometimes I don't feel those characteristics. A lot of times I don't feel those characteristics.
Sure.
And so sometimes but through reading, it like actually motivates you to be more of those things and embody those kind of characteristics. Or you read something to relate to it, and I don't know. I'm just always the main character in the book in my brain. So, yeah, you just put yourself in their shoes, and it's a safe place to do that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to take it here.
Okay.
So we can touch on the spice of Booktok.
What everyone wants to know.
Degenerates on Booktok. There's absolutely something to be said about Booktok books being largely Wattpad quality written erotica. I'm certainly not reading them, however, having seen a guy on TikTok make a video like, all the women in your life are reading porn about a book he picked up and read in his female friend's house in a tone of scandalized horror and disgust. I actually don't think men should be making these criticisms. He said he picked it up expecting a romance and was horrified it was porn. He said specifically, like, who are you getting your... I don't think I can read that in this podcast.
Okay.
But basically very graphic, sexual verbiage.
Okay.
So where I'm going with this, at least,
He
is
was shocked because the books that she was reading had explicit sex scenes in them. And oh my goodness, let's clutch at our pearls, ladies. I think it can be a very healthy thing.
So in my...
Sure.
There you go. So then as you go down
What's
the
your
rabbit
question?
hole...
Go ahead.
No, it's just a comment or maybe a conception between women and men of... Okay, guys are more visual, right? So you always have the argument, oh, you're watching porn, oh, that's cheating. And then you have romance novels, that's smut or erotica. And then that's not cheating because you're reading it versus watching it.
I think there's a few different ways that we could go down this like argument of comparing and contrasting the differences between porn and spicy scenes in novels. Yep, we've heard the whole adage of men being very visual, and it's pretty commonplace to hear that, you know, men have watched porn through the years or in their youth or what have you.
Women too.
Still fake sex, right? But involving real people. So there's the moral and ethical dilemma of that, which we won't get into.
Okay.
Versus, fake sex that is written about, that you imagine in your brain, and nobody's harmed during the production of this spicy scene. So here's one of my thoughts through the years.
Okay.
Is because I've also heard from a lot of men that they think about sex all the time. Like daily, like multiple times a day. It traverses their brain in their chemistry. All those little synapses, that is on top of their mind, no matter what. I will tell you, and perhaps this is, I'm just speaking from my personal experience. Ladies, let me know if you feel similarly or not. I'm only one person, very small sample size. But sex is not something that is on top of my brain. Hardly ever, in fact. It's my brain is occupied by so many other things, by the kids, by everything I have to do, by the mental load of just living. There are so many things that occupy this never-ending monologue of my brain, right? And sex is typically not at the top of the list. And so through reading these books, I think personally it's been very beneficial to us because especially...
they're my favorite books. Let's get that right out there.
Specifically through romance novels, it reminds me to think about that kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, that is something I do really enjoy in my relationship. I really do appreciate that feeling of being wanted and feeling sexy and having that emotional and physical intimacy. That's something that I want in my life. It's no longer at the bottom of the list because it reminds me that it exists, right? So for us, I think it's a really healthy thing because I think it just reinforces intimacy. Should we say that? Yeah.
I have no arguments to anything you said, for the record. So
I speak the truth. So is it the same for everybody? No, I don't know. That's my personal experience. Everybody else, let me know what your personal experience is. I personally think for me, it's a good thing. I don't think it's cheating. I saw some, on TikTok, I think that you sent me some of these things where it was that stitch of that guy being like, women reading this erotica is cheating. And then women stitching it with their partners being like, hey, in my book, my book boyfriend is like a motorcycle rider with
boyfriends
with tattoos or something. And they're like, okay, cool. And they don't care at all. They're like, is that cheating? I guess we're cheating. And then there was one where it was, she was like, oh, I read this book and I guess I cheated on my husband with this book. And then I gave it to my husband and I made him read it. So what does that mean? And then he cheated on me? What does this mean? What does this mean for us? It was funny.
Yeah, it was good.
So, for me, morally gray, I guess I don't find any harm in it. I think it can be a positive thing. I do think it can be a negative thing though. I specifically look for authors and books that have strong female characters. And there are definitely romance books that I've read where I've ooh, that gives me the ick. Ooh, I don't like that part. But then you can kind of know yourself a little bit. And just acknowledge that and move on. I didn't like that scene. That scene's not for me. And then you just learn about yourself, what you like, what you don't like, and you don't even have to actually experience it. It's a win-win.
Boom.
I mean, I can go on, but I'm sure you have more things. I kind of feel bad for our listeners. So many opinions. Here we are.
Yeah. It's fun. It's good.
Gonna reel it in.
No, keep it going. This just went back to one of the items that we had talked about was it's actually a real problem that men increasingly don't read books and literature is seen as geared towards women. I say this as a man who's noticed how female dominate most literary
We help each other out.
tend to be. Most book clubs are female dominated. A lot of Booktok and whatnot seems to be geared towards women, and many online communities forums seem to be mostly women. I know a good deal of men who haven't seriously read a novel in years, and it's like a positive feedback loop. The more feminine that reading seems, the less interested men are in doing it. I see this as an issue, firstly because of how much men could benefit from reading more. A lot of my greatest life lessons have come from sources as diverse as Harry Potter, Ulysses, The Old Man and the Sea, and A Song of Solomon. Regularly reading substantive books sharpens intellect, strengthens concentration, and perhaps most importantly, builds emotional intelligence and empathy. Moreover, I have a few men to talk with about books. Obviously, I don't mind discussing with women, but as men, we bring our own unique perspectives in analyzing literature. I don't know what the solution is to the problem, but I thought I'd share and ask if you saw a similar phenomenon. Sure, you have male-geared literature like Lord of the Rings and Hemingway, but I increasingly notice that even the Lord of the Rings books are being read by more women, although the movies seem to be more popular with men.
Well, women do enjoy a wide variety of literature. I think also we don't pigeonhole ourselves to a different perspective. For example, reading books from a male perspective. And maybe it's because we have grown up in a world where men have dominated so much, where we're used to like, sure, if there's a male main character, cool, who cares? Whereas men probably feel differently growing up in a male-dominated culture where reading literature where there's a woman as the main character. Mm-hmm. Maybe they have a harder time experiencing that. Again, I think that's probably a wider topic of discussion. I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are behind this being a man.
You're right. He didn't mention any books that he's read that had a female lead. Mm-hmm. I mean, who's got the time to read a book?
I mean, you've got time for TikTok.
And it's true, right? You can always make the time if you set the priority. And it is just easier to sit down and watch Lord of the Rings rather than read it.
Absolutely. According to my research, I have more.
Go on with your research, lady.
Reading activates multiple parts of the brain, including the visual system, language comprehension, and other areas. You see, I am prepared to share the benefits of my compulsion to read, because that's what we established is my problem. Or maybe it's not my problem. Okay, so the magnocellular tracking visual system is activated, the left frontal cortex, which helps you understand the meaning of letters, the Wernicke's area, which helps you understand the meaning of words, the left inferior occipital cortex, the superior temporal gyrus, the parietal and temporal lobes, and the inferior frontal gyrus.
All that.
All of that stuff. Reading stimulates neural pathways in the brain, which can improve memory, cognitive function, and creativity.
Yeah.
The more you read, the stronger these networks become, and reading can also rewire the brain, creating new neural networks and strengthening the white matter in the corpus callosum. This can help you process information more efficiently and learn faster. So see, it's more of that activation of the brain versus where they have shown screens really kind of turn the brain off. The brain just, kind of rests. So yes, it is easier. And I'm not saying that I don't also scroll on my phone or enjoy movies, all that stuff also.
Yeah. But no, I just think it's a lot easier to flip on the TV. And honestly, reading makes me tired at night.
Not me. I will stay up until 3 a.m.
I know. I know.
But yes, it is supposed to, and that could be a good thing if you're trying to fall asleep. Just, crack a book open. Unless you're like me and you'll just end up reading until 3 and then you have to get up at 6 and then go to work. You're tired. Don't do that. I don't do that very often.
I would say that this is the majority between men and women, though, that a majority of women read over men.
Yeah, it's probably been more socially accepted, though.
Going back to
culturally accepted.
Well, I don't read a book because it's socially accepted or not accepted. I would gladly read a book, but I just think it's how our brains are wired. We are more visual. It is probably more appealing for us to watch something, movie, Lord of the Rings, porn, than read a book, romance novel, newspaper, whatever it might be.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Or we're like little girls just more encouraged to read more, or more as kids. Definitely the differences between Emmett and Eloise. Eloise just being able to sit longer and focus more and just kind of having more of those typical little girl traits. Whereas Emmett is like, I want to go play, and I want to go, not that he can't. We enjoyed sitting down and reading tonight, all snuggled up in the chair.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but I think that Eloise tends towards that more.
Yeah. All right. I got 2 things left. First one, very quick.
Okay.
It was a stat that you found. Just so you all know, 30 minutes of reading burns 50% more calories than 30 minutes of watching TV.
For real? I don't think I sent that to you, did I?
Yeah, you sent this to me. Is our reading obsession unhealthy? I'm not addicted to reading.
I just thought that was an
advertisement. I can stop
advertisement.
after I finish reading the next chapter. Yeah, that's...
How many times have I said that? Just let me finish this chapter.
So, now you know. 50% more calories. Just read a book. All right, and the last one has nothing to do with our views on book reading. Am I the asshole for telling my friends that my husband isn't well read? Background. My husband, let's call him Will. He's in the Navy and he works on a nuclear reactor on submarines. We've been together for 4 years, married for 2. We were at a small house party with a few friends of mine from college and we were discussing books that we've all read. When at one point, one of my friends, let's call him Steve, says, "Hey, Will, what's your favorite book?" And my husband responds, "Oh, I really like To Kill a Mockingbird." Then Steve gives him a really quizzical look and asks him, "Have you read any books outside of high school?" And Will hesitates a bit and says, "Outside of my manuals at work, I guess I really haven't." So then I try to explain to Steve, "Oh yeah, well, he's not well educated, so he's never had a reason to be well read." We all had a good laugh, but then Will didn't really contribute a whole lot to the conversation the rest of the evening. On the car ride back, Will was pretty quiet, and I asked if he was all right, and he says in a sarcastic tone, "Peachy." I asked him if I did anything to upset him, and he responded back with, "I don't know. I don't think I'm educated enough to properly explain myself." I tell him I didn't tell my friends that he was unintelligent, just that he wasn't college educated. He accused me of minimizing how hard his Navy schooling was, but I explained that military education and college education are simply not the same. We continued to fight until we got home. I then texted my sister about what happened, and she called me the biggest asshole, and that I needed to apologize, and now I'm having second thoughts about how I handled all of this. Reddit? Am I the asshole? Do your thing.
Yes, 100%. She is the asshole. And Steve, you are also an asshole. Okay, reading might be something that I really enjoy. It's not something that everybody really enjoys, and that's also okay. Also, the more that you read doesn't necessarily it's not equivalent to intelligence, in my opinion. Sure, might help, especially if you're reading the right things. But if you're like me over here, just reading romance novel over romance novel and just kind of escaping from your world, I mean, I do think that it's activating my brain and other things. But that doesn't necessarily make you more intelligent or smarter. And okay, What did
he works on?
What did he do? Yeah, what is his living? Like, what does he do for a living?
He's in the Navy. He is a sailor or a sailor on a submarine, right?
Okay.
And he works on nuclear reactors. Pretty sure he's the smartest person in that room.
Nuclear reactors, you guys. Like, for real. I don't care if his favorite book, To Kill a Mockingbird was a great book. There's a reason why that one's read. If all he is reading is his manual since high school, good for him, because I want somebody who knows what they're doing working on nuclear reactors. I don't even know what a nuclear reactor truly is. I just know it's above my pay grade. So she is for sure the asshole. Steve is for sure the asshole. And they need to redefine their definition of intelligence and what makes someone intelligent or educated, because you can be educated on any area. Yeah. And nuclear reactor seems like a real specific one to be educated on.
It's just a really shitty thing to say.
Yeah, you just tore your spouse down in front of all of your friends.
And
that's not cool.
No, not cool. It sounds like a really pretentious party and one that I do not want to be at.
No.
The people came back. Definite asshole. You're the asshole. Let's put aside your husband's incredibly difficult job for a moment. On what planet does anyone think calling their partner uneducated is okay? That's never okay. Ever. Mm-mm. Let's circle back to the job. Do you know what it takes to get onto a nuclear sub? Those folks go through extensive testing to even be considered. They go through even more extensive training and education than most super smart geniuses go through. Their job is insanely stressful.
I also know a lot of dumb people who went to college and graduated. That sounds mean. But not... You know what I mean. Maybe we should cut that out.
Are you saying there's a lot of uneducated people that went to college? College doesn't necessarily make you intelligent.
How about that?
Educated? Maybe. But well-rounded person?
Mm-hmm. It's not the end all be all.
College isn't everything,
no.
Right.
So
that's, I think, the biggest point that they're missing. Oh, well, yeah, you don't read a lot? Like, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do outside of being on a nuclear sub? There's other things you can talk about other than, hey, what's your favorite book?
Right. Or, for example, the 10-year book drought that I went through going from undergrad to PA school and just not feeling like I had the time or energy to read. I didn't have an answer to that, really. So,
first question, what the fuck is wrong with someone's favorite book being To Kill a Mockingbird?
Yes.
It's a good book, period.
Exactly.
What a dick to be like, have you read any other books outside of high school? OP and Friends, massive assholes. Snobby dicks with zero class looking down their noses at everyone else.
Yep. Don't be that guy. Nobody likes that guy. Steve. Don't be a Steve.
Don't be a Steve.
Don't be a Steve. Do you want to hear what else? Let's see. I wrote down some other things.
Boy.
We didn't cover everybody.
Everything.
Right. Here is a life hack for all you busy moms who, if you ask, how do you get through those books so fast? Yes, I enjoy reading, but did you know that your Kindle and Audible, and maybe there's other apps that connect like this too, that if you get both the Kindle and Audible version of a book, then you can read and then you can pick up where you left off reading, listening to it. For example, when you're doing the dishes or you're doing the laundry or you're vacuuming the floors or you're doing all the life stuff, cooking, meal prepping, all that stuff that you're supposed to do. You can listen to it on your Audible and it makes those chores way better.
Nice.
Yep. And then when you're done listening to it, then you can go back when you're tucking yourself into bed at night. You can go up and open your Kindle and it will pick up where you left off on your Audible.
Cool. Is it
So you can go back and forth.
is it $15 and then $15, or if you buy one, you get the other one for like $2?
Well, they each have their own prices, so it all kind of depends. I have found that Kindle prices usually is like $8 for a book, perhaps, and then like $3 for an Audible. But there are some more popular ones, and I'm sure it depends on like which ones you're getting. That can be more expensive. There's also on Audible dramatized readings of books. So especially the 5th book of this series. That's the only one that
What's
I actually
the title?
have. I think it's A Court of Silver Flames. But it's Nesta's book.
Cool.
That one is definitely the spiciest of this series.
3 red chili peppers.
And they sell it on Audible as a dramatized version where they actually have voice actors. So each character has their own actor. And
Sure.
so that's kind of interesting to listen to, because then they also have like sound effects. Like when she's talking about rain, you can hear rain and so forth. So
Nice.
that is cool. Those are definitely more expensive. All of those that I've seen thus far has been like you buy part 1 and then you buy part 2. And they're like $20 a piece. So I only have actually part 2 because I didn't realize that when I bought it of the last book.
I think we're running out of battery.
Okay.
What book are you reading now?
Well, so I'm rereading. So I'm reading like a normal person, the Fourth Wing series. So there's Fourth Wing, there's Iron Flame, and then on January 20th comes out Onyx Storm. Second book left off in a real cliffhanger that like crushed my soul. No, like I guess that was a spoiler. Sorry, but read it. It was so good. I can't wait for the third one to come out. Like I have so many theories about what's coming next. So I can't wait for that one. So I'm on the second time rereading that one, looking for the clues that I missed out on the first time around, because now that I know certain things, it's exciting. And then the other one that my palate cleanser kind of was the Never After series books. They're all standalone books. And I can't clear conscious recommend them to everybody. They're a little more, they're a little more,
5 spicy peppers.
They're a little more like
Graphic.
you don't want that in real life, but I'm okay reading about it, kind of a thing. But, it's all kind of fun because the Never After series by, I think it's like Emily McIntyre or something like that. It takes like a Disney story and has the villain as the love interest, and like they're an anti-hero. Like they're still bad.
So like Jafar is a love interest.
For Jasmine.
And there's
right.
Parallels
between the stories. Like the most recent one that I read was the Lion King one. So it was actually Scar who was the love interest with Sarabi or Sarah in the book, right?
Nice.
So they're just fun.
Yeah. Am I going to benefit from this rereading?
You always do.
All right. And on that note, we got to go.
Bye. P.S. Our battery is running out on our camera, so that's why this is ending abruptly. But we hope you enjoyed the episode. Thanks for listening. Please write, comment, subscribe. Tell me your favorite books. I need more books to read after I'm done with these current ones. So let me know what you love.